I've always been an ordinary guy. I work a 9 to 5, grill on the weekends, and thought I had the kind of marriage that wasn't perfect, but solid enough to withstand the usual storms. My wife, Claire, and I had been together for nearly 9 years, married for 6 of those. We had routines, comfort, and I genuinely believed we had love. But there's something eerie about comfort. Sometimes it numbs you just enough that you miss the cracks forming under the surface. It all started with a car. Not mine, hers. Claire had been driving the same silver Honda Civic since college. Reliable, boring, just like me, she used to joke. But then, out of nowhere, she said she wanted something new. Something more her. I didn't think much of it. We were doing all right financially. She'd started a new marketing job that gave her a little more freedom and income. It made sense. She wanted to treat herself. She began looking at cars online, watching review videos, dragging me to dealerships on the weekends. At first, it was kind of fun. But then I noticed something shift. One Saturday, she wanted to test drive a luxury SUV. We pulled into this flashy dealership on the edge of town, one of those places where the floors shine and the salespeople wear cufflinks. That's where we met him. Nick. Nick was the salesman assigned to us. He was younger than me by at least 5 years, with perfect teeth and a tan that didn't come from mowing lawns. The way he talked to Claire, it wasn't overly flirty, but it was smooth, confident, like he knew exactly how to read her. And she laughed. A lot. I told myself not to be insecure. He was just doing his job. And Claire? She loved me. We were shopping for a car, not shopping for a new life. She test drove the car, alone. Nick said it was dealership policy during busy hours. I remember standing on the curb, watching her drive away with him in the passenger seat, wondering why I suddenly felt cold despite the June sun. When she came back, her eyes were lit up like I hadn't seen in years. She said the car was unbelievable, and that she felt alive in it. Alive. That word stuck with me. She didn't buy the car that day, but she went back a few times. Alone. She said she wanted to try out a few more models. I offered to come with, but she insisted she didn't want to waste my weekends with car stuff. And like a fool, I believed her. What I didn't know then was that she'd already stopped test driving cars. She was test driving something else entirely. And the truth was about to hit me like a head-on collision. The first real red flag came about a week after that Saturday at the dealership. Claire had always been pretty open with her schedule. We shared a joint calendar on our phones for things like work events, family dinners, and even dentist appointments. But suddenly she started forgetting to add things. Meetings would pop up out of nowhere. Dinners with clients would run later than usual. Once or twice, she didn't come home until nearly midnight. At first, I chalked it up to her new job. She said her boss was demanding, and in the marketing world, things move fast. I didn't like it, but I trusted her. Then one Thursday night, she came home glowing. Not just tired or stressed, glowing. Like she'd just come from a spa. Her hair was slightly tousled, makeup fresher than it should have been after a full workday, and she was humming to herself in the kitchen while heating up leftovers. I asked how her meeting went. She paused a second too long before saying, "Good. Just long." She never made eye contact. That night, she plugged her phone in face down, something she never used to do. I tried to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. But the next morning, while she was in the shower, I noticed her car keys on the kitchen counter. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain, not even to myself, I grabbed them and went outside. Her new car, yes, she had bought it, that same luxury SUV from the dealership, was parked in our driveway. I slipped into the driver's seat and just sat there for a moment. The leather still smelled new, like it hadn't yet absorbed the life of its owner. Then I looked at the dashboard. The odometer had more miles than made sense. A lot more. According to the paperwork we got when she bought it, she'd only had it for 2 weeks. But there were nearly 1,400 miles on it already. My stomach dropped. I sat there doing the math. Her job was 15 minutes away. Even with daily commutes and errands, that number didn't add up. What had she been doing? Where had she been going? I remember gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just paranoia anymore. Something was off. Very off. That evening, I casually mentioned the mileage to her. Just floated it in conversation, pretending to be curious. She blinked, then laughed. "Oh, I've just been driving around a lot. You know, getting used to it. Sometimes I take the scenic route after work." That didn't explain 1,400 miles. But I didn't press. Not yet. Instead, I started watching. Quietly. Carefully. I became a man I didn't recognize, checking her phone when she was in the shower, reading her texts over her shoulder, studying the way she dressed before leaving for work. I hated myself for it. But not as much as I hated the feeling that I was losing her. And then came the evening that confirmed everything. It was a Wednesday. She said she had a networking dinner in the city. I offered to drive her. It was raining hard, but she brushed me off with a quick kiss on the cheek and disappeared out the door in that gleaming SUV. 2 hours later, I couldn't sit still. I got in my own car and started driving aimlessly, pretending I was running errands, but really just spiraling. And then, near a downtown hotel I'd passed 100 times, I saw it. Her car. Parked under the overhang. The same SUV, unmistakable license plate, clean as ever. She hadn't mentioned a hotel. I pulled over and just stared at it, engine idling, rain streaking down the windshield like a curtain between me and the truth I didn't want to face. What was she doing there? Who was she with? And in that moment, the man I thought I was, the husband, the partner, the best friend, started to unravel. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I drove home in silence, hands clenched on the steering wheel, heart thudding like a drum in my ears. She came home 3 hours later than she'd said she would, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't hers. Not bad perfume, just different. Like something she'd borrowed, or maybe been too close to. I asked how the networking dinner went. She said, "Fine. Just the usual boring conversations." Then she brushed past me, went straight upstairs, and I sat on the couch for an hour trying to convince myself I was imagining everything. But I wasn't. And the universe was about to give me proof I hadn't asked for. It happened 2 days later, on a Saturday morning. Claire was out grocery shopping. At least, that's what she told me. I was cleaning up the kitchen when I noticed her gym bag by the door. She always took it with her on weekends, saying she might stop by for a quick workout afterward. I don't know what came over me, but I opened the bag. Inside were the usual things: leggings, a towel, headphones. But at the bottom, tucked between her sneakers, was a crumpled piece of paper. A receipt from a hotel restaurant. 2 entrees. 2 drinks. 1 dessert. Charged to the room. I felt the floor tilt. The date was that same Wednesday night. The one she said was a networking dinner. The one where I saw her car outside that downtown hotel. And the worst part? The receipt was signed by her. I recognized the swoop of her C, the way she dotted her I with a tiny circle instead of a dot. I used to tease her about it when we first started dating. I sat on the floor with that receipt in my hands, staring at it for what felt like an eternity. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't vague unease or circumstantial evidence. It was betrayal. She came back from groceries about an hour later. Smiling, humming, setting bags on the counter, and asking if I wanted to help her unload. I couldn't speak. I just nodded and started pulling out cans, one by one, trying to keep my hands from shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. I didn't confront her right away because, deep down, I was terrified of what she'd say. I didn't want confirmation, even though I already had it. Part of me was still clinging to the idea that maybe, just maybe, there was some explanation. But explanations don't hide in gym bags. So the next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back to the dealership. I told the front desk I was thinking of buying a similar SUV and asked if Nick was available to talk. They said he was out on a test drive, but would be back shortly. So I waited. 10 minutes later, he walked in. Same cocky smile, same polished shoes, same smooth confidence. He didn't recognize me at first. But when I said, "Hey, you remember me? Claire's husband?" His face changed. Just for a second. Just long enough. I said I was thinking of getting the same model Claire had bought. Asked him how she liked working with him. Said she'd mentioned how helpful he was. He nodded slowly, clearly unsure of what I knew. So I leaned in and said, "You and I both know she wasn't just test driving that SUV." His eyes widened, then narrowed. He didn't deny it. Didn't say a word. He just gave me a look that I'll never forget, a look that said, "Yeah, I did. And what are you going to do about it?" I walked out. No yelling. No scene. But something inside me cracked wide open that day. It wasn't about the car anymore. It was about how easily my entire life had been rerouted without my consent. And now, I had a decision to make. I didn't tell Claire I'd seen Nick. Not right away. I needed time to think, time to decide if I even wanted to confront her at all, or if I just wanted to walk away. That weekend, I started noticing things I'd been blind to before. Little signs that, once harmless, now felt like red flags screaming for my attention. She kept her phone on silent. She flinched when I walked into a room unexpectedly. She'd take calls in the garage or bathroom and say it was work stuff. She stopped making plans for the future. No more mentions of vacations, or house projects, or even birthdays. It was like she'd mentally moved out, but hadn't packed a single box. And me? I was still in the house, trying to live like nothing had changed, while everything inside me had already started collapsing. The final crack came on a Tuesday evening. She was supposed to be working late again, and I was alone at home, trying to decide if I had the energy to eat. I opened the fridge, stared into it for 5 minutes, then shut it and walked outside for some air. That's when I noticed her SUV wasn't parked where it usually was. She was supposed to be at work. But I had this sinking feeling, like gravity itself was trying to drag me toward a truth I hadn't yet accepted. I got in my car and drove to the dealership. Not because I thought Nick would be there, but because I needed to see it with my own eyes. I don't even know what I hoped to find. But I never made it that far. About 2 blocks away, I saw it. Her SUV, parked outside a small, boutique hotel, the kind you don't book unless you're trying to keep things quiet. I pulled over. Watched. 5 minutes later, I saw them. Nick and Claire. He was wearing a leather jacket, holding the door open for her like it was some scene from a cheap romance movie. She laughed, tilted her head back, the way she used to do with me when everything felt safe. They walked inside together. That was it. That was my moment of truth. I didn't follow them. Didn't scream or make a scene. I just sat there, heart pounding, hands trembling, realizing that everything I thought was solid had been replaced by something hollow. I drove home in silence. That night, I waited until she got back. When she came in, she tried to act normal. Tossed her keys in the bowl by the door. Slipped off her shoes. I was sitting in the living room. She froze when she saw me. "Hey," she said. Too casual. "I thought you'd be asleep." I looked at her. Really looked. And I said, "How long has it been going on?" She didn't answer. Didn't ask what I meant. She just sat down slowly, across from me, and stared at her hands. Then she whispered, "A few months." That was the part that gutted me. Not just the betrayal, but the ease with which she admitted it. Like she'd been waiting for me to figure it out, so she wouldn't have to keep pretending. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "It just did." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. All the cliches, they were real. All the warnings I'd ignored, they were right. She started to cry. Apologized. Said she still loved me but wasn't happy. And that's when I said something I didn't know I was going to say until the words left my mouth. "You didn't cheat because of the car. You cheated because you were looking for something you thought I couldn't give you. And maybe you're right. But don't lie and tell me it just happened." She went quiet. And in that silence, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about truth. The truth that the person I thought I knew had become someone else while I wasn't paying attention. And maybe, so had I. After that night, after she finally admitted it, something shifted between us. The silence in the house got heavier. Meals became awkward rituals, each of us picking at our food like it might reveal something neither of us wanted to say out loud. Claire didn't move out. Not right away. She said she needed time to figure things out. I didn't press. I wasn't ready to talk about divorce. I wasn't ready to talk about anything honestly. But I started planning. Not for a fight. Not for a confrontation. For a reckoning. See, I wasn't the kind of guy who exploded. I didn't scream or throw things. I absorbed. Observed. Waited. And while she went about her life, still seeing Nick on the side, thinking I didn't know, I started collecting pieces of my own. Bank statements. Emails. Hotel receipts. I even installed a tracker app on the spare phone she'd left in the drawer. It was old, but still synced with her cloud account. She never changed the settings. Every message, every photo, every location ping, it all came to me. And I learned things. A lot of things. Like how she'd been spending money from our joint savings to pay for weekend getaways. How she'd taken sick days to fly out and meet him in other cities. How she'd even brought him to her family's lake house once, told them he was a client. She had rewritten our life. Erased me from parts of it I didn't even know were missing. But here's where things got interesting. Nick wasn't just a salesman. He was married too. And his wife? She had no idea. I found her on social media. Her name was Emily. She had this blog about raising twins and baking gluten-free desserts. She posted pictures of their golden retriever, their anniversary trip to Maine, their perfect little life. So I sent her everything. Every screenshot. Every receipt. Every GPS log. I made it clean, anonymous. I didn't need thanks. I just wanted the truth to hit someone else the way it had hit me. It didn't take long. 2 days later, Nick's car disappeared from Claire's dealership. She came home in tears, saying he'd been fired. Over a misunderstanding. She wouldn't tell me more. But I already knew. Then I started the second part of my plan. Claire loved the SUV. She treated it like a trophy, washed it every Sunday, never let a single takeout wrapper stay inside for more than a minute. So one night, after she'd fallen asleep on the couch, I slipped into the garage with the second set of keys. I didn't slash the tires or smash the windows. No, That would have been too obvious. Too easy. I opened the glove box, took out her insurance and registration, and replaced them with a neatly folded note. You wrecked something a lot more valuable than this car. And the damage? It's permanent. Then I drove the SUV to Nick's now empty apartment complex and parked it right in front of the leasing office. Left the keys in the ignition. Doors unlocked. Walked away. She reported it stolen the next morning. Cried to the police. Made a whole scene. They found it 3 days later. Nothing damaged. Nothing stolen. Just left behind like a memory neither of them could face. She never mentioned it to me. But after that, she started sleeping in the guest room. And I started sleeping better. With the SUV gone and the silence between us now deafening, Claire seemed to fold inward. She barely spoke to me anymore. We moved through the house like strangers, brushing past each other without even the courtesy of eye contact. I could tell she was unraveling. But I wasn't done. The last threads of our life together were fraying, and I planned to pull each one with surgical precision. First, the finances. She never noticed when I started separating our bank accounts. Quietly, methodically, I redirected my paycheck to a new private account. Closed down the joint savings under the pretense of streamlining bills. Moved my name off of anything we didn't share. She only realized when her credit card bounced at a boutique while buying herself new shoes she once might have tried to justify with a sweet smile and a "they were on sale" excuse. That smile didn't work anymore. Next came the house. It was technically mine. Bought before we were married, under my name alone. Claire had always treated it like ours, added her touches to every room. From the gallery wall in the hallway to the throw pillows I secretly hated on the couch. But she never asked whose name was on the deed. I didn't evict her. That would have been cruel. Instead, I started making it unrecognizable. I repainted the walls, tore down the photos of us, and replaced them with landscapes. Packed up her favorite mugs, her knickknacks, her books, and boxed them in the attic. And then, one Saturday while she was out with friends, I held a yard sale. Sold her wine fridge, her fancy juicer, the outdoor furniture set she'd picked out one summer afternoon when we still believed in forever. I priced it all cheap. Must go today. Cheap. It wasn't about the money. It was about the erasure. When she came home and saw the empty patio, she just stood there, mouth half open, like she'd walked into someone else's life. I told her flatly, "We're downsizing." She didn't respond. Just went inside and shut the bedroom door. But it was the last straw. 3 days later, she handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a proposal, separation, with terms that barely acknowledged what she'd done. She offered me half of everything, like she was doing me a favor. So I gave her my own envelope. Inside were copies of every receipt, every message, every betrayal. And a letter that ended with, "You don't get to rewrite the story and leave me holding the pen. You don't get half. You get what's left. Which, after all this, isn't much." She didn't fight. Didn't scream. Didn't even cry. She just walked out the front door the next morning with 2 suitcases and never came back. But I wasn't done yet. Claire left without saying goodbye. I stood at the window that morning, watching her haul 2 suitcases into a rideshare, shoulders hunched like she was carrying more than luggage. And maybe she was. Maybe guilt had finally started weighing something in her chest. But I didn't flinch. I didn't wave. I just closed the curtain and let the silence take over the house. It was quiet in a way that didn't ache anymore. Over the next few weeks, I filed for divorce officially. Clean, uncontested. I'd been thorough, protecting my assets, gathering the evidence, getting advice from friends who'd walked this road before. She didn't contest anything. Maybe she didn't have the fight left in her. Or maybe she knew, deep down, she didn't deserve to win. But there was one last thing. The car. The SUV. The one that started it all. I had taken it away once, but I wasn't finished with it. Not entirely. After the divorce papers were signed, I contacted the dealership where she first met Nick. Told them I was interested in trading in a vehicle. I made an appointment with the new manager. Nick, of course, had long since disappeared. I drove her car in. Yes, I had reclaimed it during the asset split, along with a few other things she thought I didn't want, and I parked it right at the front entrance. Inside, I handed over the keys, smiled, and said, "There's a story behind this one." He chuckled, probably thinking I meant a fender bender or a long road trip. He didn't know. I traded the SUV in for a simple, unassuming truck. Nothing flashy. Reliable. Mine. Before I left, I asked if they still had that framed customer testimonial Claire had written after her. Wonderful experience. They did. Smiling photo, 5-star review, name proudly printed. I asked if I could take it. They looked confused, but said yes. I walked out with that frame under my arm and tossed it in the first gas station dumpster I saw on the way home. And that was it. Not a fire. Not a screaming match. Just the slow, deliberate disassembly of a lie. Claire reached out once after the divorce. A short message. "I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you." I stared at it for a while. Then I deleted it. No response. No need. Because the truth is, I wasn't that man anymore. I wasn't the husband waiting on the curb while his wife drove off with another man. I wasn't the fool staring at an odometer trying to calculate betrayal. I was the man who lost everything he thought he needed, and found something better in the quiet that followed. Control. Clarity. Closure. And sometimes, that's the most satisfying revenge of all.